Hi, welcome to Fork in the Loaf. My name is Heather, and today I'm going to be doing some cookies. They're a basic chocolate chip cookie. It's my family's favorite. We do, I think it was called Mrs. Fields or something, but it's been my favorite. I've tried so many different chocolate chip cookie recipes. And this one is going to be, I'm going to doctor it just a little bit. So I'll put the original recipe below. I think I'll put the revised recipe too. But I happen to change it a lot because I do different types of flour with it. I've done oat flour. I've done, today we're going to do a soft, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my bracelet off, making a lot of noise. We're going to do a soft white wheat, fresh milled. And so, of course, the very best is of course with the white flour. But I'm trying to put more nutritional value into our food. And of course, it's not a fermented wheat. So it's one of those things, I kind of like to do this really well with oats. Like I like to take oat groats and I grind those into a flour and I make these cookies with those, and that is fabulous. But it's not bad with the soft white wheat flour. So I went outside, my glasses are darker, but I am going to go ahead and point you down and show you my new, I just bought a mock mill. Let's see if I can. So I just got the Mock Mill Professional 200. I spent a little extra on it because I grind my own wheat. I use it all the time. It was something I've been doing a lot of research on all the different mills, and it got to the point it was this one or the Como. And the Como does a finer grind from what I hear, but it sounds like this is like good enough that you don't have to have the Como. And the Como, it looks like you lose a little bit of flour in the corners or so. Anyway, and I like the look of this one. So I chose the Mock Mill, and so far I love this thing. So I'm going to start with putting in my cup of butter, and for this I just use regular butter. I don't use the Kerrygold because I just don't feel like I think it's kind of, I don't know, I just think it's pointless to cook with that stuff. You're gonna hear my dog barking in the background. It is a beautiful spring day today, and it's not spring, it's only beginning of February, but it's like 45 degrees outside, which although it's cold, it's warmer than it has been. And at night, it still gets down to like 26. So it gets really, really cold at night, and it's really, really nice in the afternoon. So I'm going to put in 1 cup of butter. In here, I have a half a cup of Demerara sugar, which is just cane juice that's been squeezed and dehydrated and crystallized or whatever they do to it. I'm not even sure, but it's not refined. And then in here, I have coconut sugar or palm sugar. So I have a half a cup of each. I'm cutting my sugars down. I want to use sugars that have a nutritional value to them versus a refined white sugar. And I'm only doing about half the amount of sugar. Normally my recipe calls for 1 cup of 1 cup of brown sugar and 3/4 cup of white sugar, but I don't want that much sugar in them. So I'm gonna now cream this just like I would. And one of the tips and tricks to making a good chocolate chip cookie is creaming your sugar and butter together. So when it is done with that, I will show you what that looks like. Here, let me show you what it looks like now. My goal here is to not have to do so much editing. So right now, I've got the butter and the sugar in it. I'm gonna go ahead and cream that up. It probably takes about 5 minutes at a low to medium speed, and I will be right back. Okay, so I just wanted to show you what it looks like right now. This is not creamed. This is just mixed together, so you can still see the crystals of the sugar, and it looks kind of brown. So when we get back to this should be a little bit creamier white, and I'll show you when we get there. If you look right here on my beater, you can see that darker brown stuff, and then I've got this lighter stuff here. I could keep going, or I could call it good. It is pretty well creamed. There is still granules in it because of the type of sugars that I'm using. It's gonna get more and more done as I go. So I'm gonna go ahead and start adding more stuff to this. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of vanilla to this. I use quite a bit of vanilla. I'm gonna add 2 eggs. You don't want shells in these. And then I'm gonna go ahead and start my beaters so that all that stuff can get incorporated as I'm adding it. I've only got 1 egg in there so far. So it looks kind of beautiful to me. So now I'm gonna add my flowers, and I've got mine set on, so if I turn it on, okay, that's where the stones are not touching. That's where the stones are just touching. This is a soft white wheat berry that I actually just picked up today. On the computer, there's a game called This Is Sand. If you just type in This Is Sand, I think it's thisissand.com, it'll bring you to this thing. And it's like you're dropping, you can change the colors of the sand, you can make different landscape type things. But this reminds me of that. Like, I just have so much fun just piling it up in a pretty, anyway. So there's 1, I need 3 cups of flour. 2, 3 cups. I have heard that every cup of wheat berries gives you so much wheat flour. I have not figured out what that is yet. So I've got 3 cups of flour in there. This is where I'm going to add my baking soda, and my recipe calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon. So what I do is I just do just under a teaspoon, and then I try to sprinkle that across. And then for salt, I do about another 3/4-ish of a teaspoon, so just under a teaspoon. And I'm gonna sprinkle that in there. And now I'm gonna just mix this all together nice and slow. One of my favorite things about doing this with a whole wheat versus a white wheat is the flavor. Like, I love the flavor of the whole wheat versus the white. There's just more to it. And it's okay if your cookie dough looks a little wet, more wet than your normal cookie dough. We're gonna let this sit. We're gonna let this sit and absorb for just a few minutes, but I need to make sure that this is well incorporated. Like right here looks really wet, and this looks like it's got more flour. So I'm gonna take my little scraper here, make sure I got all that flour off the sides. Make sure this gets down. Make sure to get down underneath there. And I don't know about you, but that kind of looks like a wet cookie dough to me. The main nature of a fresh milled whole wheat, though, is they have a tendency to be just a little bit more absorbent. So I'm hoping that that will prove the case here. I know when I use my oat flour with the oat groats, which is probably my favorite way to do this, it takes on, it's definitely more wet looking. I think I even had to use a little bit more flour. And now that I have all that in there, I'm going to toss in about 1.5 cups of chocolate chips, which there's sugar in those as well. So to me, that's plenty of sugar, in my oh so humble opinion. Give it a quick stir. You don't want to stir too much once you got the chocolate chips in there, because it'll break them all up and you'll have chocolate crumb cookies, or like the cookies won't be crummy, but the chocolates will be like crumbs of chocolate everywhere. Fingers are the best scrapers, I'm trying to be polite here. So now I'm going to take my little, this one I think is about a tablespoon and a little bit more than a tablespoon. I don't know if it's a tablespoon and a half, but it's pretty good size. It's a perfect cookie size. And I'm going to go ahead and divvy these out. My oven is heated to 350 degrees. And once I get these divvied out, I'm going to bake them for about 12 minutes. You can do 10 to 12 minutes. I don't like underdone cookies. I don't like biting into dough. I'm not a sugar cookie dough fan. I just have never really cared for it. Not sure why, because I know everybody else seems to love it. My family will come in and get spoonfuls of it. All right, so I'm gonna go set this in there for about 12 minutes. I'll be right back. Okay, so these just came out of the oven and they are spread. They're still hot. When they cool, they'll do a little bit more of that crinkle that you're looking for in a good chewy cookie. This was 12 minutes. I also noticed with a whole wheat, especially fresh milled, with my breads, it takes longer to cook those than it does with plain old white flour. So the 12 minutes actually works really good for the whole wheat. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish divvying out the rest of these, and when I get done, I'll show you how many I got. I usually get probably 3 to 4 dozen, maybe 3 dozen, 2.5, it depends. So, and look, you can see I was not really very good at putting this stuff on here. Sometimes I care more. Sometimes I pay more attention, I should say. Anyway, I'm gonna come back when they're all done. Sorry guys, my sunlight's coming in weird. So out of that whole batch of cookies, I got 38 cookies, which is 2 more than 3 dozen. And then out of the 3 cups of flour, or the 3 cups of soft white wheat berries, man, I put 3 cups of flour in there. So it looks like I got 5 cups out of 3 cups of wheat berries. I'm just going to keep an eye on that. Anyway, so I got 38 cookies, and this is what they look like. They're kind of beautiful. Let's take a cookie. Let's take one that has more cookie than chocolate chip. So we're going to take this one that has quite a bit of cookie. And I'm just going to open it up. And that is what it looks like inside. So it's kind of got a little bit more of a softness to it than, and that could be the fact that I use a different kind of sugar. It could be the fact that it has whole grain, whole wheat in it. And it's like my favorite recipe, my very favorite. I've tried several different chocolate chip cookie recipes. This one's just my favorite. Even with the reduced sugar content, even with the, I just feel like it's sweet enough with the amount of sweetener that I put in it and the chocolate chips. It's plenty sweet, plenty rich. I don't like, I like when my cookie tastes like a cookie and not like a cup of sugar. So that's my preference. I will put the original recipe down below, and then I will put this recipe that I used here, which is very, very similar, just a couple modifications. And then, thank you for joining me on this adventure of a fork in the loaf. Let me know about down below if you try this recipe. Let me know what your thoughts are on sugar content or sweetener content. You can definitely do plain old sugar if you consume that kind of stuff. I'm trying to avoid that kind of stuff. I'll do maple syrup, I'll do honey. I haven't quite mastered the art of baking with honey. I love honey, but I don't love when it overpowers the flavor of everything else. I like maple syrup a lot for baking, but it'll give the cookie definitely a different texture. And so I just love these. Anyway, thank you for joining me on this adventure of a fork in the loaf. I will see you next time. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Please tell all your friends and family about my channel if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.